Hello and welcome to the premiere edition of Amplify. I'm your host, BRIANNA Rost. Amplify offers a space to elevate the opinions and perspectives of teachers and students on a variety of topics impacting education. In today's program, we'll look at the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has reshaped the education landscape.
The last 3 years have introduced a wave of uncertainty and change for students and teachers.
Bye, friends. Bye, Madison. Bye, Adolfo. Bye.
In March of 2020, the COVID-19 global health pandemic triggered mass school closures, effectively upending student learning. The 2020-2021 school year was arguably one of the most challenging our country has experienced. Students were forced into quarantine, isolated from friends and families at a time when social interaction is crucial to development. Teachers scrambled to reinvent curriculum and modify lessons in order to fit the needs of learners in a virtual environment. The pandemic has exacerbated historical inequities, contributed to an even greater inequality, and widened pre-existing learning gaps. With most school systems reopened for in-person learning, we are experiencing an entirely new set of obstacles. What most assumed would be a return to normal has been anything but. Learning loss, staff shortages, mental health challenges, and overall fatigue are all a part of our new educational paradigm. As we try to pick up the pieces of an ongoing pandemic, the future for students and teachers remains unknown.
Teachers in particular have been hit hard by the stresses that the pandemic has brought. We spoke to several about how they've had to adjust.
The pandemic has impacted how I show up in the classroom by just being more mindful of where students are with their social and emotional needs. I make sure that I arrive each day giving in some time to check in with students, beginning and end of class, beginning and end of day, just to see where they are personally. The pandemic's hurt people in a lot of ways and taken a lot of time away, so I really want to build that time into my day to make sure I'm reaching them and seeing where they are before I reach them with content.
It's really hard to do a bunch of jobs at once. It's really hard to have the time in the day to make up for the fact that our schools are completely understaffed and overwhelmed. I feel like I'm doing multiple people's jobs every day and it's burning me out. This is my 5th year of teaching. I studied this profession, I love this profession, I'm dedicated to this profession, but I wonder all the time if I'm going to be able to keep doing this profession, and it's because of how hard it is to do it. And it doesn't have to be this hard, but because our schools are under-resourced, it is. We simply don't have the staff to do the things that we need to do and to give the support to our students that we need to give to them, and people are trying really hard.
So I think the hybrid model definitely created a lot of different multitasking situations for teachers that maybe we hadn't been trained to do or originally planned on doing. I know we've heard the phrase like, this isn't what we signed up for, and it mostly I think was something that people weren't trained to do and maybe we weren't super comfortable. But I think over the course of the 18 months of getting comfortable with that, I think really we've come away with a lot of new skills, especially technological skills and ways to multitask and use technology in different ways.
I try and create wins for the students during the lessons. For example, we just did a lesson not too long ago where students did pre-reading strategies and we made it into a game where they won tokens. And so by having the wins, the students enjoyed learning how to preview books and have discussions about books. So pretty much it's all about having a connection with the students and giving them some wins and having some wins myself to make the lessons fun for me and the students.
I'm extremely hopeful. I see one of my students in particular, she gets very frustrated with me sometimes because she realized that I push her and I'm going to keep pushing her. Times when we have to write and the stamina with just holding a pencil, she gets frustrated because she didn't have to do that last year. But I'm hopeful because I see the drive in students to still yet want to learn. They want to be here. They want to be in school. They want to see their friends. They want to see their teacher. So I'm hopeful when I see my students get off the bus in the morning and they're excited to be in school. They're excited to be in Miss Davis's class. And that gives me hope that I'm doing what I need to, even days when I feel like I don't. And I'm hopeful for the future that students will accelerate and they will be where they need to be.
Joining me now, I have MACI from Featherbed Elementary School and Davon from Woodlawn High. First of all, thank you guys so much for being here today. Let's start with just how was y'all day today? How are y'all feeling?
It was okay.
It was okay?
It was an okay day.
It was an okay day, good. Like, that's a good way to start. How was yours, Maci?
I would say it was a good day.
It was a good day.
Yeah.
Okay, good. How has the year been for you guys?
Stressful. It feels like we're, what they say, building the plane or flying the plane, building it as we're flying it or something like that. It's been a stressful year.
It's been a stressful year. And Davon, what grade do you teach?
9th and 11th.
9th and 11th. And do you have any other roles in your building?
Yes, so I'm actually the English 9 team lead. I'm also the class of 2024 advisor.
Nice.
And so amongst all of that, I do those things.
Okay. And then Maci, you're a real contrast because you're elementary school. And what grade do you teach?
Right, 5th grade.
5th grade, okay. And do you have any other roles at Featherbed?
So 5th grade math, we're departmentalized, so geared toward math, but other than that, that's about it.
Okay, so tell me about like what some of these stressors this year have been for you.
I think for me, I see educators as always having to adjust, right? You don't know what the students' attitudes may be or moods may be. You don't know if it's a test that day or you have a meeting that popped up or anything. So I feel like we're always adjusting on the day-to-day. And then you add COVID on top of that. So I just feel like it's like overload sometimes. So it can be a lot. And I think it's okay to express that it's a lot. I feel like sometimes people are overwhelmed and they don't want to express that because it may look bad in the workplace, as in, maybe you can't handle your job or maybe. No, we're overwhelmed, and it's okay. Let's be solution oriented. I'm overwhelmed, but this is what we can do. This is what we can do to help that.
Right. And some of the things you mentioned are issues that we were having, right? They were just sort of simple things that happen in schools, but the layering on COVID has just added this new dynamic. Like, what has that looked like for you in your school, Davon?
It's a lot. As she stated, we have to adjust. And so no matter how much of a workload we have, no matter what's going on in our personal lives, we have to stop and adjust for our students. And on top of that, every other thing that we do, now add the mask onto it. You have students who don't want to keep a mask on. You got, little girl over here, she's more worried about her lip gloss than she is the mask. And then you have, your little brother over here who he's like, nah, I need, them to see my face. And so it's like adding that to it, it can be a lot more stressful than it already is because they don't want to put the mask on. And then you got the cell phone issue. Many of them are like 2 years behind because, being virtual for 2 years is trying to catch them up. And a lot of them don't know like basic grammar or, just like the basic things they should know how to do. And so now you feel like I'm to blame for what their teachers didn't teach them in middle school or what they failed to pay attention to in middle school. So it's like, now you're here, but what can I do? And she said, what can we do to come up with a solution so that we get you back on the right path?
Right. And there's two really interesting things that you just mentioned. One, I just want to talk about the students first. Like how are students showing up now after a year of interrupted learning, right, in 2020, and then a year of virtual learning and now transitioning back into the classroom? How are you seeing students show up differently this year?
I feel like it's like two different types of students, right? So you have the one student who has been out of school and is just really excited to be in school, to be with their friends, talk with their friends, catch up with their friends, play with their friends, recess, all of that. Then you have the other student who loves school, excited to be back in school, focused, wants to catch up. So dealing with those, and especially all in the same class, it's a lot. And then going back to what he talked about them not being in school and missing fundamental skills, frustration comes into play, especially with math. I teach 5th grade, so your 3rd grade was cut in half virtually, and your 4th grade was completely virtual. 3rd and 4th, fractions, multiplications, decimals. So with that comes frustration now in 5th grade because we're doing long division. We're dividing and multiplying decimals. So then you have to add frustration onto that with the students.
Right.
Yeah, the students are just, they're showing up.
Showing up every day, right?
They're definitely showing up.
Every day.
You can tell that their parents are like, I don't care what you do, but you're getting up out of this house. And so I think the 2 years they were home, it made parents frustrated. And they got a chance to feel what we've been feeling, all this time. And so, as she mentioned, you have students who want to learn. You have the ones you have to kind of force to learn because they're like, I'm just doing this because my mom or my dad made me. And so it's like trying to get them motivated to want to learn has been an issue because they feel like I'm just doing it for my parents.
Right.
I'm not really doing this because I want to do it, but they're just showing up.
And so you mentioned like this piece around what educators and school leaders and administrators have been talking about, this learning gap, right? But then there's also this whole other conversation about how students show up socially and emotionally. And I can say that I know that those are some of the things I've been experiencing as students are in crisis often, right? Like our students have shown up differently. What does that look like in your school beyond what they're doing in the classroom in terms of their instruction and education, socially and emotionally? How have students showed back up at your schools?
Right. So I'm at a Title I school. So we have a lot of different things, going on in our building. And I think it's a lot because being virtual, being home, you don't know what's going on at home. We have students that's coming from different situations. So you're home for a year and a half. When you're in school for most of the day. When you're home for all that time, you're home for all that time. So whatever you're dealing with it constantly with no break. So then you have students showing up with emotional battles, which turns into fighting, bad words, going back and forth with adults, disagreements, all of that because they don't know how to handle their emotions, or they may not know what's going on. What is wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? And I think that's when you pull in social emotional skills and look into that further to help them because it's a lot. As adults, it was a lot for adults.
Absolutely.
Imagine a child, especially if it's not being explained to them. They don't know what's going on. I can't imagine being a 10-year-old, like,
trying to navigate all of this. It's just crazy. Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think you've learned about yourself as a teacher in these last 3 years? That's a tough one. I put y'all on the spot. Everything, right? Everything.
What have I learned? I mean, I've learned so much. To be patient with myself, to not just say self-care, but actually practice self-care. Like self-care means I'm just not touching my computer as much as I want to touch it, as much as I want to put grades in, and as much as I want to update this or update that. Sometimes I just need to come home, turn everything off, get in the bed, relax.
Absolutely.
Because I need to recharge. And so I've learned not to just say self-care, but to actually practice it so that I can show up for my students completely.
Right. I think the first thing that popped in my mind was, I'm a survivor. Because seriously,
it's real right now.
It's a lot. And for me, I entered Baltimore County in COVID. So first year was virtual. I didn't know what a Schoology was. I didn't know. So imagine me having to learn, then teach my kids who are virtual now. And it was a lot, and going back to self-care. And also taking self-care with your classes. I know like we have morning meeting. Morning meeting today may be we meditating, or it may be let's do a crossword puzzle. Every holiday, we're having a holiday party because we need it, and going back to me personally, self-care. Taking that time aside, going into your hobbies. If you read, whatever you are as an individual, make sure you don't lose that because you're tired or because you're stressed. No, that's the time to dive into those things to relieve that. I think sometimes we are filled with emotion, but we don't empty out those emotions, So it's like tap into what you like to do, what you used to do, whatever you do in the summer, bring that into the school year and let that be your stress reliever so you can show up every day.
Definitely. And I think this piece around showing up is so important. So I'm just wishing both of you love and light and all the self-care and compassion for the rest of the school year because that is just so important. And this ability to decompress for teachers right now seems more necessary than anything else. So I'm sending y'all all the love and light and positive energy for the rest of this school year. Yes, receive it all. Thank you both so much for being here. We will be back with more of Amplify. Joining us now to continue our conversation around the impact of COVID and the pandemic on teachers is my very good friend, Andrew. Andrew, you teach at Pine Grove Middle, and it's really exciting that you are here because you and I became friends because of the pandemic. I don't think we would have met had it not been for the virtual space that we shared, so I'm excited to have you here and share physical space with you. How have you been?
We're doing well, doing well. It's, can't believe it's March already, pretty much. This year has flying by, but
Flying
we're making
by.
it.
Yeah. And so for you, because you are multifaceted at Pine Grove, you have lots of different roles. What are some of the jobs that you have over there?
Yeah, so it's mostly, just to fill a need. I music teacher, run our drama club, and avid site coordinator, and then music department chair as well.
Okay, so you see teachers and students in lots of different environments. What has the last 3 years, what has this been like trying to navigate supporting teachers and students in the pandemic?
Yeah, so it's being flexible, and it's being patient, and it's being understanding with everybody. Having some new teachers in my department, understanding like how crazy the first couple years of teaching were for myself in a normal environment, but amplifying, this isn't what anybody learned in college how to do. So it's been crazy, but there are moments of light with the students and with the new teachers as well. So
yeah, and I think that's such an important point that you mentioned. Like none of us learned how to do this, right? So even for our most experienced veteran teachers, the last 3 years have been, every year feels like something new. What do you think you've learned about yourself, about your teaching style in the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's literally just focusing in. I've had some new teachers in my department who, showed me like the strength of the relationships that they were making with the students. It kind of carried through whether we were in virtual or coming back in person, hybrid. So it's really just been kind of shutting some of the noise out and just trying to focus in on what's important. There's still going to be a million things to get done every day, but really just focusing in on what was important with the relationships with the kids in the room and all that. That will go miles and miles and miles to getting anything else that you need done accomplished. So.
And I think the prioritizing, you and I are both middle school, so we have this sort of understanding of what this developmental age looks like. And so what do you find is most important to focus on with our middle schoolers, especially considering where they've come from in the last couple of years and what their educational experience has been? What has that focus been like for you?
Yeah, we've had our 8th graders, usually they'll walk around and they're like, why do the 6th graders kind of do this or act this way? And I always try to remind them the last time they were in school in person was 4th grade, and the last normal year they had was 3rd grade. So especially at a school like mine, where we have a lot of different feeders, and then we have a lot of different high schools that we send students out to. If they're just picked up and dropped into a brand new school at the other flip side of this pandemic, that's kind of jarring to their system and all. So for us, the most important thing has just been kind of showing folks how to interact with each other and handle some of the emotions that they're experiencing, and just to communicate a little bit better. I think that's been really universal. It's just how to communicate, whether it's virtual, in person, in writing, et cetera.
All those things. And it's more multi-layered this year, right? Like trying to do that, balancing the education, trying to fill some of the gaps that have been created in student learning, and then also balance these sort of social emotional needs. How are you taking care of yourself right now? Like what does that look like for you as someone who has to support teachers and students, and I know just be all over the building, right, and have your hands in so many pots? What is self-care looking like for you right now?
It is, I'm kind of hypocritical with it, because we preach and we preach and we preach to other folks to do those things and self-care and all that. And, some of those cliches, I used to laugh when people would say you cannot pour from an empty glass, but it is true. And I think so many of us have burnt out over the last couple years, and probably it took something like the pandemic for us to realize that the pace we were all going at was not sustainable, right? So I think that kind of reset that some of us might have had during that pandemic, I'm very blessed, like I don't have a family to take care of. I cannot imagine some of my colleagues and all who had kids to take care of, or parents and all that to take care of. But it really has just been like focusing in and communication, honestly, the openness, the honesty, it's a little more acceptable now to say, I'm not okay right now, or this isn't okay right now. And we've been trying to show the students some of the same stuff too. Like it is okay to say, I'm not fine right now.
Absolutely.
And
I
need a break.
I think we've all really prioritized this piece around like mental health and staying well. What kind of supports are you receiving? What kind of support do you feel like you need, whether that's school-wide, system-wide, education-wide, right, systemically? What do you think we need? What do you need right now?
Resources to support some wonderful initiatives that I know Baltimore County is working on, and other districts and states and even in the country. For me, especially too, the communication. a lot of decisions being made quickly from some quickly changing environments and events and all that as well. I understand, but having those decisions to be made kind of on the dime or at the drop of a hat, where maybe a little more anticipation could have been had or a little more communication. I'm a planner, so I know not everyone in the world's a planner, but especially being responsible for multiple adults, especially some new teachers.
Right.
You know, you want to plan your own stuff out as well so that you have more time and more energy to help them and support them moving forward. But, you know, you want to communicate with your people and your families
Absolutely.
and your students, you know, what to think and what's coming up. So.
Yeah, and there's just so much to balance right now. But in the midst of all this, what do you feel hopeful for?
The students, it's cliche, but there's a moment every day where I see a kid light up in a way that I hadn't seen before, or talk to another student, or support another student, or, you know, recognize that another student's not doing okay when I might have missed it. And it's just really hopeful. I'm seeing sixth graders that are more mature than some college kids that I know, some students that have been through more than I'll ever go through in my life, but they still show up and try to make everyone's day a little brighter and all that, and it's just hopeful. I know it's been tough and the last couple of years have been challenging, but hopefully that resilience that a lot of them have developed over these last few years is going to help them move forward.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, you know, having such a phenomenal educator like you, and I know you're bouncing all around your building, but I know you are a support system for your students. So I know our students, at least at Pine Grove Middle, are in excellent hands, knowing that you are there and the other educators are there. Thank you so much for sharing this space with me and having this conversation. I really, really appreciate you being here today. And I'm so glad you finished with students. Coming up, we are going to hear from some students about what their experience has been learning and living through a pandemic. Our students have also seen their lives disrupted by this pandemic. We spoke to a few about how they've been coping.
COVID impacted my learning style because I was not okay with doing online, and it was very hard, and it almost impacted me playing volleyball. And because of my bad grades, and I just feel like in school is better because like I'm actually more engaged.
The most difficult part has been when we went back. Most of the time we skipped a couple of years, and honestly in online school we didn't learn much because it was online. We had a choice not to, and most of the time we picked not to learn. And so when we went back, a lot of things we were not familiar to, and we didn't learn much in the online years.
When my parents caught COVID, I was virtual. It was like in March, so we just basically got virtual kind of. That was like when I was in 3rd grade, so my challenge was because my mom helps me. My mom used to help me with my homework, so my challenge was I had to do my homework on my own instead of getting help, and I had to make sure my mom was good too at the same time.
The support that I need is for teachers to care more about me. Like, I know it's like, it's your grades, your stuff, but I still need that kind of the support to keep me moving throughout the school year. So like, I will want how are you doing, or do you need any help? Like, questions like that to keep me moving.
I have got a lot of patience now. I used to have no patience at all, and especially when we were online. If my computer wasn't working, if there's no Wi-Fi gate, I had to have some patience, or I would have so much anxiety. And here in school too, since we use our computers a lot still, the Wi-Fi have been very bad, so I have to keep calm or I'm gonna be stressed out.
So now for the highlight of our show today, I have two wonderful, beautiful, brilliant students here with me. I have Roa Hassan from Perry Hall High and Ariana Welch from Sparrows Point. First of all, you beautiful women are amazing, and thank you for being here. I feel really honored to share this space with you. First of all, how are both of you doing?
I'm good. It's definitely been, in general, I feel like it's definitely a mix of emotions, a little bit of a roller coaster, but today I'm on the positive side of that roller coaster.
Good. How are you, Ariana?
I have to say the same. I'm feeling absolutely great. I was a little bit nervous about coming here, but I think I'm pretty comfortable.
Let me tell you, I'm more nervous having to talk to the two of y'all, because I think, y'all just have so much going for yourselves. So because of that, tell me some of the things that y'all are involved in your schools.
Okay, so I am the class of 2023 president and currently running for Baltimore County Public Schools student member of the Board of Education.
Yes, let's just say that one more time. Roa Hassan is running for student member of the board. That is important that we all know, so we got to shout that out. So yeah, just say that one more time, Roa. Say it with your chest because that's important.
I'm running for BCPS, student member of the Board of Education.
Yes, election March 17th?
Yes,
March 17th.
And speeches come out February 22nd.
Yes, okay, awesome. Okay, and what else are you involved in?
So I'm also involved in my school's Muslim Student Association and a few other school extracurricular activities, but I'm also the Legislative Affairs Coordinator for Baltimore County Student Councils and the Maryland Center for School Safety, which is awesome, and I love doing that. But I'm also an organizer, so I've organized 2 Black Lives Matter protests for racial justice in the past 2 years, and I'm so passionate about it. I could talk about it for ages.
We'll have to have you back just to talk about that because I just think that's so important. So this is why I'm nervous, y'all, because she's clearly just a superstar. And Ariana is too. Ariana had to jet over here from just doing after-school activities. What were you up to today?
Well, I am a member of the Student Racial Justice Alliance at my school. Basically what we do there is we do address social and racial issues among the student body because sad to say, we do have a couple of them. I also am an organizer too. I actually just recently organized a walkout with my group members, it went pretty well, to say the least. I'm also in the student newspaper, and I'm also in the student announcements. I'm a part of the morning announcements.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And both of you are juniors?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior.
Yeah, this is my last year.
This is your last year, so you're wrapping it up. So tell me, since you guys are at the end of you're getting close to the end of your high school experience, but so much of your high school experience has really been marked by this pandemic. What have the last couple years been like for you?
It's definitely been a lot. It's definitely been a lot of transitioning, I would say. I think the first year I got into high school, it was cut short by the pandemic. And then as soon as I got used to, that new sort of virtual learning style, it was like, okay, now let's get back to in-person learning. And so it was kind of jarring. It was really jarring to go from one method of learning to another and back and forth. And it's definitely been a lot to balance with how everything keeps changing.
Yeah. What about you, Ariana?
No, I completely agree. My experience was basically, I'm more of a visual learner. So when we were in school, I was thriving, I was doing very well. And then once virtual hit, I really had to kind of not beat myself up, but just make sure I was on top of my own self. So while I was doing that, I actually ended up failing a class. I actually ended up failing my AP English class, which was very hard for me because, my teachers, they were trying to reach out to me hey, Ariana, you're not usually like this, what's going on, But it was because I just had a lot going on. It was me, my brother, and my mom. We don't live in a 2-bedroom apartment. We've got everybody else using up the Wi-Fi, internet's going out. I'm hearing noises in the background. I couldn't focus. So that was my main issue. Going back into in person, it was a lot better for me than being virtual. I could definitely say that.
Good. So you talked a little bit about what sort of was going on at home, and all of us, right, have things kind of happen in our personal lives. How do you feel and hopefully your schools were, but how were your schools, your teachers, administrators, how were they responsive to the sort of personal things you had going on, trying to balance learning, in the middle of COVID, being home, dealing with the Wi-Fi, all those things? How were they responsive to what was going on with you guys?
I think personally, I've had a really, really amazing group of teachers. I've had such a supportive learning environment. I don't know about you, but last year it was so difficult to just turn things in, to turn in work. It was always a little bit late or a lot bit late. And I always had teachers who were super just get this in, just get this in and we'll talk about it. We'll figure out what's going on. And I think all of us definitely struggled with mental health during the pandemic. And I specifically remember a lot of my teachers would be like, hey, let's stop and talk about mental health, or let's stop and talk about this current event. And it was so good to just have that conversation to fall back on.
Yeah.
And I think I was really lucky to have teachers who held us accountable, but also were empathetic to everything we were going through.
I have to completely agree again, girl. You just on point with me. But a lot of my teachers were very supportive. They were, of course, messaging me, having those spots for the end of class, the last 15 minutes, we discussed ways to deal with mental health issues and how like they'll have resources available for students that really needed to talk to someone or anyone that just needed to like have that same conversation, like, hey, they just wanted to know like, hey, I'm here to support you. A lot of them would try to like stay on top of us because of course we had issues with submitting. We did have issues with submitting work too because like I said, internet issues and things like that. They would either, try to contact parents as much as possible or contact the student in general and have them like say, hey, you can stay a little bit after if you want. We can meet on this day. I just want you to make sure that you're getting this work done. And if you do need help, like I said, join the coach class or you can talk to me, you can message me. There are people available to help you out.
Yeah. First of all, I'm so excited because I know Baltimore County teachers are phenomenal. So I'm so excited that they were just so supportive. Both of you mentioned this sort of issue around mental health challenges. How have you seen that like affecting your friends, your socialization, or has it affected you guys at all?
Yes, 1000%. I know personally, I've experienced a lot of burnout. I've experienced a lot of struggling with that issue, with that mental health, and making sure, okay, am I creating time for myself? Am I creating time outside of everything I'm doing academically, everything I'm doing professionally, and am I creating self-worth that is not attached to a letter grade or a number? So I think that's huge. But also recently, especially, I've seen a huge increase in students needing to seek out mental health supports because it's been so much. I've had a couple of my peers, they've had to seek outside mental health support, or they weren't supported by BCPS to seek out specific mental health supports like LGBTQ plus bodies where they can seek out psychology and psychologists. And it's been a lot. It's been, I always say this to anyone who I talk to about this, but I feel like we're all going through this collective form of PTSD. And
Absolutely.
As soon as you hear the word virtual learning, automatically I feel like everyone tenses up a little.
Flashbacks, right?
Yeah, everyone's just sort of like going through the motions, like, oh no.
Yes.
But I feel like it's been a lot. I feel like, we've seen an increase in students who feel unsafe within themselves. We've seen an increase in suicides this year, and we've seen an increase in self-harm incidents. And we need to be addressing those because our students, they shouldn't be going to school feeling like I can't come, or I can't come to school because I feel so anxious or I feel depressed. We need to be creating that environment where we're supporting our students because that comes first.
No, I have to completely agree with you.
Yeah, it's just, how can you disagree with that? I think as a teacher, I've seen that too.
Yeah. For me personally, seeing my friends, I witnessed a lot of them like literally talk to me about wanting to end their lives because they were feeling this void inside of them. Me personally, I thrive around people. So when I was home by myself, I would just like lay in bed and do nothing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't keep doing this. This is not my thing. But eventually I got a job. So that kind of like helped with my personal interaction. But some people weren't able to do that. So I feel like because they missed that personal interaction, they felt like they were alone or they didn't have a support system, even though like when someone comes to you and says like, hey, like I'm here to help you, sometimes that doesn't always mean anything, or that doesn't always click within their mind like, okay, this person really is here to help me. They just want to deal with it on their own. But recently I feel like the students have been able to band together in a way.
Yeah.
Like we're all like working together to make sure that each one of us are okay. Like I said before, even today, like we still have like discussions at the table, like, like, hey, like, are you good? Like, are you really good? Like, or hit up your friends, like, hey, like, how's your mental health doing? Like simple questions like that, just to make sure that they are doing well mentally and physically and emotionally, spiritually.
Absolutely. It's so encouraging to hear that both of you have really articulated this space where your friends and your social community is banding around each other, right? Like finding support with one another. Because you both are just so excellent and getting close to the end of your high school experience, what advice would you give to upcoming high schoolers, freshmen, right? What advice would you give to them specifically, not about work, right? But specifically around taking care of themselves, managing their mental health? What would you say to them?
Find the courage to say something. I think that was something that was huge for me. My freshman year, I struggled a lot with mental health. It was definitely not my best moments, but also being able to say something, even if it was a mess, even if it was messy, even if it was not something that I want to relive anytime soon, being able to voice that, even if you're scared, it's so important to do that. It's so important to redefine what you need. And you have to be able to voice that to be able to seek help and seek the support from the people around you, because you cannot do it alone.
Absolutely.
And you cannot change yourself. You can't really change yourself, but you can get better. And you have to do that with the amazing people around you, because they do want to help you. And even if you don't believe it, they're there for you. And you have to find people who will support you in a way that uplifts you, and find those supports, find those mental health supports. Talk to your parents if you have that safe space with them. Talk to your teachers, talk to one person. And when you tell one person, I promise it gets so much better.
One thing I'll say is I agree with that. Relationships are really important when it comes to mental health. I feel like if you are the type of person who is outgoing or likes to, just hang out with friends, like, you should be able to do that and not feel bad. Like, oh, dang, I got this assignment due in like a week. You can still do it, and you can still not feel guilty about going out and having fun, because you deserve that time. Even though you've been putting in this hard work, you still take that time out for yourself. And it's really, self-love is really, really important, because you need to be able to love yourself before you can love anyone else, or before you can even take care of anyone else. Make sure you're taking care of yourself too. If you like to take time out to like paint, that's what I like to do, or read a book, like, you can do simple things like that. And it doesn't even have to take like a whole day. You can just take a few hours out of the day too, or like a couple minutes, just to say like, hey girl, like, you're awesome.
Yes. Hey girl to both of y'all. Y'all are awesome. I feel like I'm over here like taking notes. Y'all are just so wonderful. This is good advice for all of us, not just for incoming students, right? This is good advice for all of us. And so I'm so glad that both of you are putting this into practice and that you have wonderful communities. I am glad that you are Baltimore County students and that you exist. You make me proud. Like, I think we're going to be okay if we have y'all at the helm of our future. So I just want to say a huge thank you to both of you. You are just phenomenal and brilliant. I am so excited for what is to come out of both of you. Shout out student member of the board, March 17th. Make sure y'all vote. But thank you both for being here. And thank you for being with us on this edition of Amplify. We hope that we have challenged your thinking about the pandemic and its impact on education. Join us next time as we amplify a new topic.